Dr. Hawkins was having a perfectly normal Tuesday morning cataloging the mating rituals of three-eyed space hamsters when the universe decided to ruin her day with an emergency beacon. Research Station Omega-47. This is Dr. Hawkins responding to your distress call, she said into her comm, already reaching for her emergency veterinary kit, because apparently, even in the depths of space, someone always needed help with their pets. What's the nature of your animal emergency? Static crackled back at her, followed by what sounded suspiciously like screaming. Then a mechanical translation voice cut through. Vicious predator outbreak, multiple casualties, immediate assistance required, warning, creatures extremely dangerous. Hawkins paused, considering this. In her 15 years as a veterinary behaviorist, she'd heard extremely dangerous, used to describe everything from a cranky house cat to a slightly agitated therapy pony. Alien translation software wasn't exactly known for its nuanced understanding of threat assessment. Define vicious predator outbreak, she said, already plotting a course to the coordinates. Are we talking territorial behavior, resource competition, or just someone who forgot to feed them on schedule? More static. Then, cannot. Signal breaking up. Hurry. They're everywhere. The transmission died. Hawkins stared at her console for a moment, then shrugged. Well, this should be interesting. She grabbed her field kit. Standard veterinary supplies, some universal sedatives, and a bag of assorted treats that worked on most carbon-based life forms, and headed for her transport ship. Whatever was happening at Omega-47, it probably wasn't as dramatic as the aliens were making it sound. In her experience, most species had a tendency toward the theatrical when it came to animal behavior. The 40-minute flight gave her time to review what little she knew about Station Omega-47. Joint research facility. Multiple species working on something classified that she didn't particularly care about. The important bit was that they kept several varieties of research animals, and according to the registry, none of them were particularly exotic. Probably just a containment breach, she muttered to herself as she approached the station. Someone left a door open, and now there are research subjects running around eating people's lunches. That theory lasted exactly until she docked and got a look at the station's interior. The airlock opened to reveal what looked like a war zone. Scorch marks decorated the walls. Emergency lighting flickered ominously, and scattered across the corridor were 4 very large, very dead aliens in what appeared to be military gear. Okay, Hawkins said slowly, stepping over a tail that was longer than she was tall. This is new. The aliens were clearly predators themselves, scaled, heavily muscled, with claws that could probably open a can of beans or disembowel an enemy with equal efficiency. Their gear was military grade, their weapons were sophisticated, and they were extremely, definitively dead. But here's the thing about being a veterinarian. You develop a certain immunity to dramatic death scenes. After your 3rd emergency call about a dying animal that turns out to have eaten too many treats, you learn to focus on the practical details, like the fact that she could hear whimpering. Hawkins followed the sound through the destroyed corridors, stepping carefully around debris and what appeared to be the remnants of several sophisticated weapon systems. The whimpering got louder as she approached what looked like it had once been a laboratory. She found them huddled under an overturned table, 6 of the most pathetic creatures she'd ever seen. They were small, about the size of house cats, with the same scaled appearance as the dead soldiers, but somehow infinitely more pitiful. Large, liquid eyes stared up at her from faces that managed to convey both predatory potential and desperate vulnerability. They were making soft distress calls that hit every maternal instinct Hawkins possessed. "Oh, you poor babies," she said automatically, crouching down and extending her hand for them to sniff. "Where are your parents?" One of them, braver or more desperate than the others, crept forward and touched her fingers with a tiny snout. Its scales were warm, and it made a sound that was somewhere between a purr and a chirp. That's when Hawkins noticed the obvious. They were starving. "Right," she said, already digging through her emergency kit for the nutritional paste that worked on most young predators. "Let's get some food into you, and then we'll figure out what happened here." The response was immediate and enthusiastic. 6 tiny predators swarmed her, climbing over each other to get at the food she squeezed from the tube. Their tiny claws pricked through her clothes, but carefully. These weren't attacks, just desperate attempts to get closer to the first source of comfort they'd found. Hawkins found herself smiling despite the carnage around them. This was familiar territory. Scared, hungry animals who needed basic care. The fact that they happened to be alien didn't change the fundamentals. "There we go," she murmured, letting them eat while she gave them a quick visual examination. "You're all healthy, just scared and hungry. We'll get you cleaned up and—" That's when her proximity alarm started screaming. Multiple ships approaching fast, military signatures. Hawkins looked down at the 6 tiny creatures now contentedly snuggling against her, then at the dead soldiers scattered around the station. "I'm starting to think," she said to the babies, "that I might have misunderstood the situation here." Her calm crackled to life. "Unidentified human vessel, this is the Zephyrian Imperial Rescue Fleet. Prepare to be boarded. Do not approach the contained biological weapons." Biological weapons? Hawkins looked down at the tiny creature that had fallen asleep in her lap, occasionally making soft snoring sounds that were frankly adorable. "Attention Zephyrian Fleet," she responded. "This is Dr. Hawkins, veterinary behaviorist. I'm currently treating 6 juvenile animals for malnutrition and stress. There are no biological weapons here, just some very scared— Step away from the predators immediately!" The communication was followed by the distinctive whine of charging weapons. One of the babies woke up at the noise and made a questioning chirp, looking up at Hawkins with those impossibly large eyes. "It's okay, little one," she said automatically, stroking its head. "The scary people are just confused." Through the station's viewports, she could see heavily armed figures in environmental suits approaching the airlock. They moved with the careful precision of military specialists dealing with an extremely dangerous situation. Behind them came more figures, these ones carrying what looked suspiciously like scientific equipment. "Dr. Hawkins," a new voice cut through her comm. "This is xenobiologist Prime Vextal. Do not move. The creatures you are in contact with are classified as Class 7 apex predators. They have killed trained Zephyrian warriors." Hawkins looked down at the tiny creature trying to climb into her jacket pocket. "I think there might be some confusion here," she said carefully. "These appear to be juveniles, possibly—" "Juveniles are the most dangerous phase." The airlock hissed open, and armed figures poured into the station. Hawkins could hear them moving through the corridors with military precision, their voices tense with barely controlled fear. "Located the human," one of them reported. She's surrounded by them." "How many casualties?" came the response. "None visible. The human appears to be feeding them." A long pause. Then, "Feeding them what?" "Unknown. She appears to be using some kind of tube delivery system." Hawkins held up the nutritional paste and waved it helpfully. "It's just emergency food paste," she called out, "for malnourished animals." The response was immediate weapons fire that took out a section of wall about 6 feet to her left. "Do not make sudden movements." One of the babies made a startled squeak and burrowed deeper into her jacket. The others pressed closer, clearly recognizing her as their source of safety. "Okay," Hawkins said to herself. "This is definitely not going according to plan." That's when she noticed the insignia on the dead soldier's armor, the same symbol that was now emblazoned on the environmental suits of her rescuers. The pieces clicked into place with horrible clarity. These weren't abandoned research animals. These were someone's children, and their very heavily armed, very upset parents had just arrived to find a human holding them. "Oh," Hawkins said quietly, as the armed figures cautiously advanced through the corridor. "Oh, this is bad." What Dr. Hawkins didn't realize, and really how could she, was that her innocent attempt at veterinary care had just triggered the largest military mobilization in Zephyrian imperial history. Approximately 47 minutes earlier, when her comm transmission had cut out, the Zephyrian monitoring station had recorded her final words as, "I'll take care of them." What they heard, thanks to a particularly unfortunate quirk in the universal translator, was something closer to, "I will dominate them." This distinction would prove important. "Command, this is Rescue Team Alpha. The squad leader's voice crackled through Hawkins' abandoned comm unit. The human appears to have established pack dominance over the apex predators. Hawkins, meanwhile, was carefully checking one of the babies for dehydration and completely missed this exchange. "Repeat that, Alpha Team," came the response from orbit. "The human has... she's grooming them, sir. And they're responding positively. This is unprecedented behavior from Class 7 predators." Above the research station, Admiral Thorak of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet stared at the tactical display in growing horror. In his 40 years of military service, he had never encountered anything like this situation. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "that a single human has successfully dominated 6 apex predators that killed an entire squad of our best warriors?" "Affirmative, sir. She appears to be feeding them by hand, without protective gear." There was a long silence on the bridge. Finally, Thorak turned to his communications officer. "Get me high command. Priority Alpha 7. We have a potential species-level threat." Back on the station, Hawkins had discovered that one of the babies had a minor cut on its paw. She cleaned it gently with antiseptic and applied a small bandage, humming tunelessly while she worked. The rescue team, watching from the corridor, interpreted this as some kind of ritual scarification. She's marking them," the squad leader whispered into his comm. "Applying some kind of chemical compound." "Marking them how?" "Unknown, sir. But the predator is remaining completely docile during the procedure." Hawkins finished with the bandage and patted the baby gently on the head. "There you go, sweetheart. All better." The baby chirped happily and nuzzled against her hand. "Sir?" The squad leader's voice had gone up an octave. "The predator is displaying submission behaviors." This was, coincidentally, the exact moment that Dr. Vextal, the galaxy's leading expert on predatory behavior, received an emergency alert from the Zephyrian military. Vextal had spent the last 15 years studying apex predators from the safety of heavily shielded observation posts. The idea that any sentient being could interact with them physically was beyond his comprehension. Until now. "This is impossible," he muttered, reviewing the transmitted data. Then, louder. "This is impossible!" His assistant, a nervous Altarian named Blix, looked up from his datapad. "Sir? Get me an emergency publication slot with the Galactic Journal of Xenobiology. Cancel my appointments. And contact every xenobiologist in this sector. We have a paradigm shift occurring in real time." While the scientific community began its emergency mobilization, Hawkins had moved on to what she considered basic hygiene maintenance. The babies were a bit grimy from hiding under debris, so she found some clean water and began gently washing their faces. "There we go," she cooed, wiping around their eyes with a soft cloth. "Much better. You poor things have been through quite an ordeal." The rescue team's running commentary was becoming increasingly frantic. She's performing some kind of cleansing ritual on them." "Are they resisting?" "Negative, sir. They appear to be enjoying it." "That's impossible. Apex predators don't experience enjoyment." "Sir, one of them is making purring sounds." Admiral Thorak was now pacing his bridge, having received reports from no fewer than 12 different scientific institutions, all demanding immediate access to study this unprecedented breakthrough in interspecies predator dynamics. "Admiral," his tactical officer interrupted, "we're receiving requests from the Galactic Defense Council, the Altarian Science Collective, and something called the Emergency Xenobiological Crisis Committee that apparently formed 20 minutes ago. What do they want?" "They want to know if we're planning to weaponize human predator control abilities." Thorak stopped pacing. "Are we?" "I don't know, sir. Are we?" This was an excellent question that no one seemed qualified to answer. Meanwhile, Hawkins had discovered that the babies were not only hungry and dirty, but also desperately in need of mental stimulation. She found a small piece of debris, nothing dangerous, just a bit of broken plastic, and tossed it gently across the room. "Fetch," she said encouragingly. One of the babies immediately scrambled after it, grabbed it in its mouth, and brought it back to her, tail wagging in a way that was universally recognizable as joy. Good boy, Hawkins laughed, scratching behind what she assumed were its ears. Who's a good predator? You are. The rescue team's collective gasp was audible through their helmet speakers. Sir, the squad leader's voice was barely a whisper. She's training them. Training them to do what? To hunt, sir. She threw an object, and the predator retrieved it on command. In the space of 30 seconds, this report reached Admiral Thorak, was forwarded to High Command, and triggered an emergency session of the Galactic Defense Council. The emergency session lasted approximately 4 minutes before devolving into what the official records would later describe as productive panic. If humans can train apex predators, the Centauri representative was saying, what's to stop them from training them for warfare? We need to consider economic implications, added the Ferengi delegate. The entire galactic security industry could be obsoleted overnight. Has anyone considered, asked the sole human representative, Ambassador Torres, that maybe this is just a misunderstanding? The room fell silent. Then everyone started talking at once. Back on the research station, Hawkins had taught 3 of the 6 babies to play fetch. She was absurdly proud of their progress, and was considering whether she had enough supplies to set up a proper play area when her proximity alarms went off again. This time, it wasn't a rescue team. Her tactical display lit up with approximately 50 new contacts, all considerably larger than the initial ships. Oh, come on, she muttered, looking up from where she was sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by happily playing alien predators. How many people does it take to pick up 6 lost pets? Her comm crackled to life with a voice that carried the unmistakable authority of someone who was definitely not here to help with veterinary care. Human vessel, this is Fleet Admiral Thorak of the Zephyrian Imperial Battle Fleet. You will surrender the weaponized biological assets immediately. Hawkins blinked. Weaponized biological… I'm sorry, what now? The apex predators under your control. Release them immediately or face the consequences of your aggressive action against the Zephyrian Empire. One of the babies chose that moment to successfully bring back the plastic toy and drop it in her lap, looking up at her with obvious expectation for praise. Good job, sweetie, Hawkins said automatically, then keyed her comm again. Admiral, I think there's been a misunderstanding. These aren't weapons, they're children. Children do not hunt on command. Well, no, Hawkins agreed, but they do play fetch. It's completely normal behavior for young predators to… She was interrupted by what sounded like several people shouting at once. Through the chaos, she caught fragments. Impossible tactical advantage. And decades of military doctrine obsolete. And how many humans have this ability? Okay, she said to the babies, who were looking concerned about all the shouting. I think we might need to consider our options here. That's when her long-range scanners picked up the new contacts. A lot of new contacts. Ships from at least 6 different species, all converging on their position with what her computer helpfully labeled as aggressive intent. And according to her scanner, the largest group was broadcasting a message on all frequencies. Surrender the human Beastmaster for immediate study. Beastmaster? Hawkins said incredulously. I'm a veterinarian. One of the babies had found another piece of debris and brought it to her hopefully. Without thinking, she threw it again, and the little creature bounded after it with obvious delight. Through the viewports, she could see weapon systems powering up on multiple ships. Apparently, teaching alien babies to play fetch was considered an act of war. Well, she said to her small charges, this is either going to be the shortest diplomatic crisis in galactic history, or the stupidest war ever fought. It turned out to be both. Dr. Hawkins was in the middle of what she considered a routine enrichment activity, teaching the babies to sort toys by color, because mental stimulation was important for developing predators. When the galaxy's economy collapsed, she didn't find out about this immediately because she was focused on more pressing concerns, like the fact that her scanner was now showing 43 different ships from 12 different species, all of whom seemed to have very strong opinions about her veterinary practices. This is getting ridiculous, she muttered, watching one of the babies successfully place a blue piece of debris in the correct pile. Good job, sweetheart. At least someone around here has their priorities straight. Her comm had been crackling with increasingly frantic transmissions for the past hour. Altarian Science Fleet requesting immediate study access. Centauri Defense Council declaring human containment protocols. Economic implications of human predator armies. Theological significance of beast speakers. Hawkins ignored most of it, but that last one made her pause. Beast speakers? Really? She keyed her comm to the general channel. This is Dr. Hawkins to all vessels. I'm a veterinarian. I speak to animals because that's literally my job. There's nothing theological about it. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Blessed be the voice of the wild came from what her scanner identified as a vegan spiritual vessel. Heretical human claims divine intervention is mere profession, protested someone from the Altarian Orthodox fleet. Economic analysis suggests human lying about capabilities to maintain market advantage, shouted what sounded like a Ferengi trade negotiator. Hawkins rubbed her temples. I take it back. Teaching space hamster reproduction was a much simpler job. That's when things got really complicated. The first sign of trouble was the way all 6 babies suddenly stopped playing and looked toward the station's outer hull, their tiny heads tilted in identical listening poses. The second sign was the new contact appearing on her scanner. A single ship, much smaller than the gathered fleets, but broadcasting an identification signature that made all the other vessels immediately stop their chatter. All vessels. This is Imperial Dreadnought Savage's Heart. Clear the area immediately. This is a recovery operation. Hawkins checked her scanner readings twice. The ship wasn't particularly large, but it was radiating enough energy to power a small planet, and its weapons array looked like it could turn the research station into component atoms without breaking a sweat. She said, over the general channel. Who exactly are you here to recover? The response came in a voice that was distinctly different from the previous military communications, deeper, more controlled, and carrying an undertone that made Hawkins' survival instincts prickle. The cubs, human. We are here for our cubs. One of the babies made a soft trilling sound and scrambled toward the viewport, pressing its tiny snout against the transparent aluminum, as if trying to get closer to the approaching ship. Oh, Hawkins said, understanding dawning. Oh, you're their parents. Affirmative. Now release them immediately, and your death will be swift. Hawkins blinked. I'm sorry, did you just threaten to kill me for babysitting? A pause. Then, you have not been harming them. Of course not. I've been feeding them, cleaning them, making sure they get proper mental stimulation. Look, I know they're scared and confused, but they're perfectly healthy and… You taught them to hunt. I taught them to play fetch. It's completely different. Our monitoring stations recorded you commanding them to retrieve objects. Because that's how you play with young predators. It's enrichment. It's fun. Another pause, longer this time. Fun? Hawkins looked down at the 6 babies, who were now all pressed against the viewport making excited chittering sounds at the approaching ship. Yes, fun. You know, enjoyable activity that promotes bonding and mental development. Apex predators do not experience fun. These ones do. Watch. Hawkins picked up one of the colored debris pieces and tossed it gently across the room. All 6 babies immediately scrambled after it, tumbling over each other in their excitement to bring it back to her. The comm went dead silent. Then, from multiple channels simultaneously. Impossible! The scientists. Strategic implications require immediate analysis. The military. Market fluctuations indicate severe economic disruption. The economists. The human speaks the ancient language of joy. The theologians. Hawkins rubbed her temples harder. Could everyone please stop yelling? You're upsetting the babies. As if to prove her point, the cubs had stopped playing and were now huddled together, making soft, distressed sounds at all the shouting voices. There, she said automatically, crouching down to comfort them. It's okay. The loud people are just confused. The Savage's heart had moved close enough that Hawkins could see movement through its viewports, large figures moving with military precision. Human, the voice from the ship said, and there was something different in its tone now. The cubs appear to be distressed by our presence. They're not distressed by your presence, Hawkins corrected. They're distressed by everyone shouting. They're babies. Loud noises scare them. Babies, the voice repeated slowly. Yes, babies. Juvenile predators who need care, comfort, and gentle handling. Not whatever everyone seems to think I've been doing to them. She picked up one of the cubs, which immediately snuggled against her chest and made contented purring sounds. You see, she said, holding the baby up toward the viewport. Happy, healthy, well socialized. I just want to get them back to their family safely. The silence stretched so long that Hawkins began to wonder if her calm had failed. Then, human, I am Pack Leader Thorn of the Savage Guard. The cubs you hold, they are ours. I figured that out, Hawkins said dryly. The family resemblance is pretty obvious. They are not merely our offspring. They are the next generation of the Zephyrian Empire's most elite military unit. Hawkins looked down at the tiny creature sleeping in her arms. This little guy? That little guy is genetically enhanced for maximum predatory efficiency. When mature, it will be capable of single-handedly eliminating enemy squads. Right now, he's capable of single-handedly eliminating a bowl of nutritional paste and taking a nap. That is, not the behavior we were expecting. Hawkins was getting tired of this conversation. Look, Pack Leader Thorn, I don't care if they grow up to be super soldiers or accountants. Right now, they're scared babies who need their parents. Can we please just arrange a simple custody transfer without starting an interstellar war? The situation is complicated. How is it complicated? You're the parents. I'm the temporary caretaker. They're the kids. Basic biology. The cubs have bonded with you. This is unprecedented. Hawkins looked around at the 6 babies, all of whom had gathered around her feet and were looking up at her with obvious trust and affection. So? Savage Guard cubs bond only with their biological pack, never with outsiders, never with other species. This bonding behavior indicates what? The pause was so long that Hawkins was about to repeat the question when Pack Leader Thorn finally answered. It indicates that you have somehow achieved alpha status over the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. I fed them when they were hungry status. Everything else is your interpretation. Human, do you understand what you have done? Hawkins looked at her scanner, which was now showing 67 ships from 15 different species, all armed, all converging on her position. She looked at the babies who were playing contentedly with their toys, despite the growing fleet around them. She looked at the Savage's heart, which was apparently crewed by the parents of the galaxy's most elite military unit. Yeah, she said finally. I think I'm starting to. The truth, when it finally came out, was both simpler and more embarrassing than anyone had imagined. Let me see if I understand this correctly, Dr. Hawkins said, sitting in what had formerly been the research station's conference room, and was now apparently the center of galactic diplomacy. The 4 dead soldiers weren't trying to harm the cubs. They were their handlers. Pack Leader Thorn, who turned out to be a 7-foot-tall reptilian warrior with scales that could probably deflect small arms fire, nodded gravely. The Savage Guard operates in bonded pairs, warrior and battle beast. The cubs you protected were our partner's offspring. So they're basically military working dogs? That is... Thorn paused, considering. An accurate if reductive comparison. Hawkins looked around the room at the assembled representatives from what appeared to be half the galaxy. And everyone thought I was building some kind of predator army because I fed them and taught them to play fetch. To be fair, interjected Dr. Vextal, the xenobiologist who had spent the last 6 hours frantically revising every paper he'd ever published. The behavioral changes you induced were unprecedented. Savage Guard battle beasts don't typically display recreational behavior. Because no one ever taught them to play, Hawkins said patiently. They're intelligent predators. Of course they're capable of play behavior. It's how young predators learn hunting skills and social bonding. But the literature clearly states... The literature was written by people who studied them through blast-proof barriers, Hawkins interrupted. I actually interacted with them. There's a difference. Ambassador Torres, the lone human representative who had been frantically trying to prevent an interspecies war for the past 4 hours, cleared her throat. If we could perhaps focus on the current situation. Right. The current situation. Which was that 67 ships from 15 different species were currently orbiting the research station, all of them waiting to see what the human Beastmaster would do next. I have a proposal, Hawkins said. The room fell silent. I give the cubs back to their families, everyone goes home, and we all pretend this never happened. The silence stretched longer. Absolutely not, said Admiral Thorak. Completely impossible, agreed the Centauri representative. Economic ramifications alone, began the Ferengi delegate. The theological implications must be studied, shouted someone from the Vegan Spiritual Council. Hawkins rubbed her temples. Again. Why not? Because, Pack Leader Thorne said carefully, the cubs have demonstrated bonding behaviors with you that we have never observed before. This suggests that humans possess innate pack leadership capabilities that could revolutionize military cooperation. I fed them and played with them. That's not pack leadership, that's basic childcare. To you, perhaps. To us, it represents a fundamental shift in our understanding of interspecies cooperation. That's when Ambassador Torres made what history would record as either the most brilliant or most catastrophic diplomatic decision of her career. The Galactic Council, she announced, hereby appoints Dr. Hawkins as the first galactic animal behavioral consultant. That's not a real job, Hawkins protested. It is now, Torres said firmly. Congratulations. You're now officially responsible for facilitating positive human-animal relations across all member species. I just wanted to return some lost pets. And in doing so, you've demonstrated that humans have a unique gift for interspecies animal bonding. The galaxy needs this expertise. Pack Leader Thorne nodded approvingly. The Savage Guard requests immediate consultation on optimizing battle beast training protocols. The Altarian Science Collective requires analysis of our research animal programs, added another voice. The Centauri military needs evaluation of our biological warfare countermeasures, said a third. Hawkins looked around the room at the expectant faces of representatives from species she'd never heard of, all of whom apparently had animals that needed her professional attention. Fine, she said finally, but I'm charging consulting rates, and I want hazard pay. Agreed, said Torres immediately, and proper veterinary facilities at every location. Agreed. And someone needs to explain to the press that I'm not a beast master. I'm a doctor of veterinary medicine with a specialty in behavioral psychology. We'll work on that. 3 months later, Dr. Hawkins was reviewing her appointment schedule from her new office aboard the Galactic Council's flagship, wondering how her life had taken such a bizarre turn. Today's agenda: consultation with the Rigelian military on optimizing pack dynamics in their assault teams, teaching their war rhinos to get along better, followed by a diplomatic mission to resolve a trade dispute that apparently centered around someone's hunting animals eating someone else's livestock. Basic territorial behavior, she suspected. Her assistant, an efficient Vulcan named T'Pren, who had volunteered for the position after reading Hawkins' preliminary reports on interspecies emotional intelligence applications, entered with yet another request. Doctor, the Klingon Empire is requesting immediate consultation. They believe their Targ breeding program could benefit from human pack leadership techniques. Hawkins looked up from her notes. T'Pren, do you ever wonder if we're taking this whole thing too seriously? I mean, at the end of the day, I just fed some hungry babies and taught them to play games. Doctor, T'Pren said with Vulcan solemnity, you have single-handedly revolutionized military cooperation across 17 different species. The Savage Guard's efficiency ratings have improved by 43% since implementing your positive reinforcement training protocols. The Altarian research animals show decreased stress indicators and improved cooperation. The Centauri war beasts have stopped attacking their own handlers. Because I taught everyone to use treats and praise instead of punishment. It's not exactly rocket science. Perhaps. But it was rocket science that no one else thought to attempt. Hawkins looked out the viewport at the passing stars, thinking about 6 small predators who had changed the course of galactic history simply by being scared, hungry, and in need of comfort. You know what the really ridiculous part is? She said finally. What's that, Doctor? I still don't know what happened to the original research animals from Station Omega-47. T'Pren consulted her datapad. According to the final incident report, they were safely relocated to a breeding facility on Risa after the station was destroyed by pirates. Space hamsters? Three-eyed space hamsters, yes. Hawkins shook her head. I could have just stuck with cataloging mating rituals. But no, I had to respond to that distress call. The galaxy is fortunate that you did, Doctor. The galaxy is insane, T'Pren, and apparently, so am I. Outside her viewport, a Zephyrian battlecruiser moved into formation with the Galactic Council fleet. Its message light blinked a greeting in the code she'd learned meant, Pack Leader acknowledges Pack Leader. She'd never wanted to be anyone's Pack Leader. But as it turned out, the galaxy didn't much care what she wanted. It just needed someone who knew how to take care of scared, hungry babies. Even the really big, scary, genetically enhanced ones.